It sounds something like the New York street. I don't know. It's like today the air is all static, so the amplifiers are static. Music is loud, the air is loud, and we're trying to settle things down a little bit. But it's going to take like a rest.
Hendrix is widely celebrated for his groundbreaking influence on music, offering a fresh perspective on sound that few others dared to explore. His innovative style earned him immense admiration, but his ability to connect people through his music didn't come without controversy. Hendrix had a keen ear for authenticity and wasn't shy about voicing his criticisms when he felt a band or artist lacked it. Some of the musicians he dismissed were huge names, which often raised eyebrows and even sparked uproar among fans. So, what do you think? Here are 5 bands that Jimi Hendrix absolutely hated. Led Zeppelin. While many people regard Led Zeppelin as one of the greatest rock bands in history, Jimi Hendrix was never among their admirers. His primary criticism centered around what he perceived as a lack of originality in their work. In a candid remark from 1970, Hendrix stated, "I don't think much of Led Zeppelin. I don't think much about them." Carmine Appice, the drummer for Vanilla Fudge, echoed Hendrix's sentiments in a 2006 interview. He revealed that Hendrix had shared his disdain for Zeppelin directly, describing them as like excess baggage and accusing them of borrowing excessively from other artists. Appice pointed out specific examples of what Hendrix considered theft, such as the song "You Shook Me," which originally appeared on a Jeff Beck record, and the resemblance of "Dazed and Confused" to elements from Vanilla Fudge's music. He even mentioned that a member of Led Zeppelin once told him that the iconic riff in "Good Times, Bad Times" was derived from Tim Bogart's bass line. For Hendrix, originality was paramount. He held a deep respect for artists who created from their own unique visions, and he viewed Page and Zeppelin's heavy reliance on the influences of others as a significant flaw. This emphasis on authenticity was a core principle in Hendrix's philosophy of music, making his criticisms of Zeppelin all the more pointed. Pink Floyd. Jimi Hendrix possessed a mastery of music that few guitarists have ever matched, transforming his live performances into an essential experience for music lovers everywhere. Musicians around the globe spoke of witnessing a trans-dimensional experience as Hendrix unleashed his otherworldly talent on stage. For him, playing the guitar was not just a skill, it was a fine art, deserving of authenticity and creativity. He had little patience for bands that he felt circumvented true artistry in favor of gimmicks, and this was particularly true of Pink Floyd. Reflecting on the acid rock scene that blossomed in London upon his arrival from America, Hendrix articulated his frustrations in an interview. "Here's one thing I hate, man," he remarked, clearly annoyed. "When these cats say, 'Look at the band, they're playing psychedelic music.' All they're doing is flashing lights on them and playing Johnny B. Good with the wrong chords. It's terrible." His disdain was directed at what he perceived as a lack of musical substance, reduced to mere visual spectacle. Hendrix specifically addressed Pink Floyd in this context, critiquing their live shows. "I've heard they have beautiful lights," he said, "but they don't sound like nothing." To Hendrix, their performances felt superficial, lacking the depth and authenticity that he valued in music. The Monkees. Jimi Hendrix and the Monkees symbolize 2 contrasting yet significant facets of the 1960s music scene. Hendrix emerged as a beacon of creativity and originality, known for his spontaneous playing style, often never repeating the same notes within a single performance. He championed individuality, using his music as a platform for self-expression and artistic freedom. In stark contrast, the Monkees were manufactured in the sterile confines of a studio executive boardroom, crafted to appeal to mainstream audiences. This fundamental difference in origin made a clash between the 2 acts almost inevitable. Despite their differences, the Monkees were admirers of Hendrix's talent and invited him to tour as their supporting act. Although Hendrix initially agreed to join the tour in hopes of breaking into the American market, he harbored a lingering irritation toward the band. The rationale behind pairing them was that both acts brought a theatrical flair to their performances, even if their musical styles diverged significantly. Ultimately, the tour proved to be a disaster, cementing Hendrix's disdain for the Monkees. "Oh God, I hate them," he exclaimed, expressing his frustration. "Dishwater. You can't knock anybody for making it, but people like the Monkees?" His comments highlighted his belief that the band's commercial success lacked the depth and authenticity he valued in music, leaving him disillusioned with the notion of manufactured pop. Jim Morrison. Despite both being towering figures of the counterculture movement, Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison never saw eye to eye, and their two notable encounters perfectly encapsulated this discord. The first meeting took place during a jam session at The Scene, a popular New York venue. What was meant to be an impromptu collaboration quickly spiraled into chaos. Morrison, in a state of intoxication, collapsed to his knees and began miming a vulgar act directed at Hendrix while shouting, "I want to suck your cock!" The scene devolved further when Janis Joplin, also performing that night, intervened by smashing a bottle over Morrison's head, igniting a brawl that underscored the disarray of the moment. This outrageous incident left a lasting impression on Hendrix, who never performed with Morrison again. Later, during a performance of his own, soul legend Geno Washington recalled a second attempt by Morrison to join Hendrix on stage. "The place was fucking packed. The people were going ape shit," Washington recounted. Jim Morrison, clearly inebriated, staggered up to the front of the stage and shouted, "Hey, Jimmy, let me come up and sing, man, and we'll do this shit together." To this, Hendrix coolly replied, "That's okay, fella, I can handle it myself." While Hendrix indulged in his own share of hedonism, he held a deep respect for his craft. He believed in maintaining a certain decorum during performances, viewing his audience as integral to the poetic experience he aimed to create. Morrison's reckless behavior, especially while under the influence, felt like a violation of that sacred bond. For Hendrix, the integrity of the performance was paramount, and Morrison's antics only served to highlight their contrasting approaches to artistry and showmanship. Most Motown bands. Jimi Hendrix had a complex relationship with Motown, having collaborated with bands like the Isley Brothers during his ascent to fame. Yet despite these professional ties, Hendrix was far from an admirer of the Motown sound. He frequently criticized it, labeling the music as artificial and synthetic. Hendrix's mastery of guitar and production earned him acclaim for his innovative sound, but he was never shy about sharing his thoughts on what he perceived as the superficiality of Motown. "To me, the Motown sound is very artificial and very commercial," he remarked. "It's very, very electronically made, a synthetic soul sound." He articulated his disappointment further, expressing that the polished production of Motown tracks felt devoid of authenticity. "It isn't the real sound of Negro artists," he declared. "It's so commercial and put together so beautifully that I don't feel anything from it." This critique was emblematic of Hendrix's overarching philosophy about music. He believed in a profound emotional connection to sound, asserting that if music didn't resonate with him on a deeper level, connecting with his mind, body, and soul, then it wasn't worth listening to. For Hendrix, music was an art form meant to evoke genuine feelings, and anything less felt like a betrayal of that principle. This perspective not only defined his own artistry, but also shaped his expectations of others in the industry. While Jimi Hendrix was known for his critical eye regarding many artists, he also had a deep appreciation for a select few who influenced his musical journey. Throughout the 1960s, Hendrix drew inspiration from these artists who not only shaped his sound, but also left a lasting imprint on his legacy. Here are Jimi Hendrix's 5 favorite artists. King Crimson. During a Q&A event as part of Patricia Fripp's documentary Compelling Stories, The Inside Secrets, Robert Fripp, the renowned guitarist of King Crimson, shared an intriguing anecdote about his memorable encounter with Jimi Hendrix. When asked if it was true that Hendrix had shaken his left hand, Fripp confirmed, saying, "Yes, he did." He recalled Hendrix's playful comment, "Hey, shake my left hand, man. It's closer to my heart." This first meeting took place after Hendrix attended a King Crimson concert on June 2, 1969. Captivated by the performance, he felt compelled to meet Fripp and share a moment of camaraderie. The story took an interesting turn years later when Fripp met the sister-in-law of Michael Giles, King Crimson's original drummer, in a bookshop. She recounted that she had been sitting at a nearby table during the handshake, witnessing the excitement firsthand. "He was jumping up and down," she exclaimed, recalling Hendrix's exuberance as he declared, "This is the best group in the world." Fripp concluded the tale with a touch of humility, reflecting on the impact of that moment. "In all due modesty," he said, "that is one of the best calling cards any working musician is ever likely to be able to present. The Beatles." It's no surprise that the Beatles profoundly influenced Jimi Hendrix, as their impact on the music scene was monumental. Throughout the 1960s and even today, it's hard to find a musician who hasn't felt their reach in some way, whether directly or indirectly. Although Hendrix grew up in the United States, he found fame and fortune across the Atlantic in the UK, thanks in part to Chas Chandler from The Animals, who brought him to London to form the Jimi Hendrix Experience. There, he became a pivotal figure in the British invasion, mingling with key players of the era, including the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. In a 1967 interview with Steve Baker, Hendrix expressed his admiration for the Beatles' evolving sound. "Oh, yes, I think it's good," he said, acknowledging their innovative contributions to music. "They're one group that you can't really put down because they're just too much." However, he also voiced frustration over the state of American music at the time. "It's so embarrassing, man, when America is sending over the Monkees. Oh God, that kills me," he lamented, highlighting his disdain for the manufactured nature of the band. "I'm so embarrassed that America could be so stupid as to make somebody like that. They could have at least done it with a group that has something to offer. There are groups in the States starving to death trying to get breaks, and then these fairies come up." Jimi Hendrix had a particular admiration for the Beatles' 1967 psychedelic masterpiece, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. In a fitting tribute to the groundbreaking album and the iconic band, Hendrix chose to cover the title track during one of his first performances in the UK, a moment made even more special by the presence of Paul McCartney in the audience. Recalling that night, McCartney shared with Stephen Colbert it would be one of his first gigs in London. "Jimmy was a sweetie, a very nice guy. I remember him opening at the Savile on a Sunday night, June 4th, 1967. Brian Epstein used to rent it out when it was usually dark on Sundays." As the curtains opened, Hendrix stepped forward, guitar in hand, and began playing Sgt. Pepper. What made this moment remarkable was that the album had only been released 3 days earlier on that Thursday, making Hendrix's choice to cover it a stunning compliment to the Beatles. McCartney reflected on the significance of that performance. "It's still obviously a shining memory for me because I admired him so much anyway. He was so accomplished. To think that that album had meant so much to him that he would actually perform it just 3 days after its release is incredible. He must have been so into it. Normally, it might take a day for rehearsal, and then you might wonder whether you'd put it in the set. But he just opened with it." Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan was undeniably one of Jimi Hendrix's most significant influences, particularly in terms of lyrical depth. Like countless artists of the 1960s and beyond, Hendrix found profound inspiration in Dylan's songwriting, which resonated with him on both personal and artistic levels. He often spoke about his admiration for Dylan's ability to capture the complexities of life through his lyrics. In a 1967 interview with Steve Barker, Hendrix expressed his deep appreciation for Dylan, stating, "All those people who don't like Bob Dylan's songs should read his lyrics. They are filled with the joys and sadness of life. I really dig him, though. I like that Highway 61 Revisited album, and especially Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues." Despite his admiration, Hendrix acknowledged a certain humility regarding his own songwriting. "He doesn't inspire me, actually, because I could never write the kind of words he does," he admitted. "But he's helped me out in trying to write about 2 or 3 words, because I've got 1,000 songs that will never be finished. I just lie around and write about 2 or 3 words, but now I have a little more confidence in trying to finish one. When I was down in the village, Dylan was starving down there," Hendrix recalled, reflecting on the early days of his career. He mentioned how Dylan was always seen with a pad, ready to jot down observations about the world around him. "He doesn't have to be stoned when he writes. Although he probably is a cat like that, he just doesn't have to be." Hendrix often infused his live performances with Dylan's songs, showcasing his admiration for the iconic songwriter. However, one cover that truly stood out was his interpretation of All Along the Watchtower. Originally released on Dylan's John Wesley Harding in December 1967, Hendrix's rendition, which he released in 1968, transformed the song into a cultural phenomenon. It reached the top 20 in both the US and the UK, solidifying its status as the Jimi Hendrix Experience's most successful single. Years later, when Bob Dylan was honored as the Person of the Year by MusiCares in 2015, he took a moment to acknowledge Hendrix's monumental influence on his work. "We can't forget Jimi Hendrix," Dylan said, a smile lighting up his face. "He took some small songs of mine that nobody paid any attention to and brought them up into the outer limits of the stratosphere, turned them all into classics. I have to thank Jimi. I wish he was here." Cream. As Jimi Hendrix immersed himself in the vibrant psychedelic rock scene of London in the late 60s, he forged connections with some of its most influential figures. Among them was Cream, a group that, despite their brief existence, left an indelible mark on the genre. The band's core lineup featured the powerhouse trio of bassist and vocalist Jack Bruce, guitarist Eric Clapton, and drummer Ginger Baker. Though Cream lasted only 3 years, they released 4 groundbreaking albums that laid the foundation for the evolving prog rock movement. Hendrix had a particular admiration for Clapton, whom he regarded as a kindred spirit in the world of guitar. Their friendship blossomed through jam sessions and shared performances, the most notable being a night in October 1966 when Clapton invited Hendrix on stage during a Cream concert. This moment not only showcased their mutual respect, but also highlighted Hendrix's early days before he became a global sensation. Ginger Baker, reflecting on the camaraderie between the two guitarists, once recalled, "Jimmy done a TV show once, stopped, and went into playing Cream song, Sunshine of Your Love." You know, he really dug Cream. He further noted how both Hendrix and Cream played pivotal roles in captivating audiences with their innovative blend of rock and blues, stating, "Hendrix and us basically created this very large audience of people who were turned on to instrumental, vocal, loud, whatever you want to call it, music. Rock and roll, I guess, with blues in it." Baker expressed his pride in being friends with Hendrix, emphasizing the encouragement they offered each other during their rise. Reflecting on their untimely loss, he lamented, "I think he is not with us because nobody cared about him enough, and I think nobody cared enough about us then either." In 1969, the Jimi Hendrix Experience found themselves in a serendipitous moment when they were invited to perform on the BBC television show Happening for Lulu, the same day that Cream announced their breakup. After delivering a powerful rendition of Voodoo Child, the show's host, Lulu, requested that they play Hey Joe. However, just a few bars into the song, Hendrix abruptly halted the performance. With characteristic flair, he declared, "We'd like to stop playing this rubbish and dedicate a song to the Cream, regardless of what kind of group they may be in. We dedicate this to Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, and Jack Bruce." With that, the band launched into a cover of Cream's iconic Sunshine of Your Love. The audience responded enthusiastically, reveling in the tribute to the band that had been instrumental in shaping the rock landscape. Yet, the BBC producers were far less amused by Hendrix's impromptu stunt. Producer Stanley Dorfman was particularly irked and refused to engage with the band afterward. Reflecting on that memorable performance, Noel Redding, the bassist for The Experience, recounted in his memoir, Are You Experienced? The inside story of the Jimi Hendrix experience, that despite the fallout, the moment resulted in one of the most widely used bits of film we ever did. Certainly, it's the most relaxed. The incident ultimately led to Hendrix and his band being banned from the BBC for life, but it also cemented their legacy as one of the most iconic moments in rock history. Muddy Waters. As the preeminent figure in electric blues during the 1950s and 60s, Muddy Waters profoundly influenced Jimi Hendrix, who regarded him as one of his early musical heroes. Often referred to as the father of Chicago blues, Waters played a pivotal role in shaping the sound that laid the groundwork for rock and roll, making him an essential touchstone for countless legendary artists, including the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, The Who, and the Kinks. In a candid interview with Rolling Stone in 1968, Hendrix reflected on his early exposure to Waters' music, saying, "The first guitarist I was aware of was Muddy Waters. I heard one of his old records when I was a little boy, and it scared me to death because I heard all of those sounds. Wow, what is that all about? It was great." This initial encounter with Waters' raw, powerful sound left an indelible mark on Hendrix, igniting his passion for music and influencing his innovative guitar techniques. In exploring the complexities of Jimi Hendrix's musical tastes, it's clear that his passion for authenticity and originality defined his relationships with both artists he admired and those he critiqued. From his disdain for bands like Led Zeppelin and the Monkees to his deep appreciation for icons like Muddy Waters and the Beatles, Hendrix's views paint a vivid picture of a true musical visionary. What do you think about Hendrix's opinions on these bands? Do you agree with his critiques, or do you see value in their contributions? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful content. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.